Hey, it's a pleasure to have Jerry Sparby here, who is a former high school school teacher, school principal, and now I guess more on the counseling side. And it's a topic, unfortunately, that we hear, I guess, probably more often than we want to, or certainly feel like we should. But and Jerry has lived through some of this. We're talking about school shootings and kids today. And we were just talking a little bit off the air. And first of all, welcome, Jerry. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
Thanks for making the trip down from Cold Spring. And good to have. And we apologize in advance for you having to deal with our afternoon host Kirby some years ago. I know he probably presented his own set of problems for you.
Kirby's an amazing kid. He's an adult now, I guess, right?
Yes, he is. He's a new dad, and he's doing great. But yeah, when we send out the word internally that we were having you on, he goes, "Hold it, I know him. He was my school principal, and I spent too much time in his office." You know, that doesn't surprise any of us. But anyway, yeah, we don't want to joke too much because it is a serious topic. Jerry, let's get your background for people who may not know, kind of what you did, but you were in the Cold Spring, and were you the principal in 2003 when the very tragic school shooting occurred?
Yes. So I worked at Quarry Schools for 37 years. I was 20 years in a classroom and 17 years in administration. I was the principal at Cold Spring Elementary at the time. And I knew all the boys. All of them had gone through the building. And I've lived in Cold Spring, over 50 years. So not only do I know the kids personally, I knew their families. Yes. And so it's been an event that happened, it'll be 20 years ago this fall in September. And I relive it every week that there's another shooting. And, I try not to track shootings, and yet it's part of those pieces that keep showing up, and that having experienced that horrific event and that trauma.
Right. Well, you at some point shortly thereafter, you made a decision to go back to school yourself and become a counselor, and since then you have talked to some of these kids who were school shooters.
Yes. So one of the things I did was I decided to go back and get my counseling and therapy degree, and so I started working with intense kids. Those were the kids I focused on the first few years, and I was traveling all over the U.S. working with families and kids, and that was an experience. I learned so much, not only about kids and families, but myself and society, and all of these kids I was experiencing were invisible kids that nobody else knew that they were in school. They would go to school in the morning and leave at the end of the day and not had any communication with any other students or with the teachers. They basically occupied a seat in school. And time after time, it was the same profile that was showing up as these kids were the invisible kids.
Yeah, loners, basically. Yeah. We remember, I think back, there were kids like that in my school. Yeah. Every school has them, right?
Right. Every school, every classroom. And they've got some social awkwardness. They've got some things going on, but for some reason, we got a system set up that pushes them out rather than brings them in. And these kids are trying to figure out how to fit into the classroom and how to get out of those chairs and be part of the class. And yet they don't have the skill set or the support to do that.
And you're hoping to change that.
That is our goal. And so we've tried a number of different things. We have a nonprofit that we work in St. Cloud, and we're in the neighborhoods trying to help kids add value, because that was the other thing I learned, is that most kids today don't have an opportunity to add value, whether at home or in school or whatever. And so we were going into the neighborhoods, and we had teachers and university students in the summer, and we'd get the kids out playing, but we try to get the kids to help us with being leaders, not only with the games, but with art projects and with serving food and cleaning up the neighborhood every day. And then from there, we realized that we have more to do. And So I hired a couple of retired teachers now, Jim Meyer and Brian Ottman, who also worked at Recording, were there at the time of the shooting. And we decided we were going to go into classrooms and teach the kids how to play games. And so we created a games app, and it's a games app or a digital library basically with 1,000 games on. Because what I found is most parents that I was working with and kids, they had no idea how to play with their kids. And so when I'd ask a parent of a 4 or 5 year old, how do you play with your kids? Or what do you play with your kids? They'd say, oh, we play Candyland. And I said, well, you can't play Candyland all the time. They said, no, we can't. So we created this app with, well, there's about 200, 250 games for parents with preschoolers. So if you've got a basket of socks, here's some games you can play with the socks. If you've got a bag of marshmallows, here's some games you can play. Bunch of soup cans, etc.
So these aren't games that they play on their phone or on their computer, which mercifully I'm so glad to hear that, because I just think there's way too much of it, and I'm sure there is some redeeming qualities and values to it, but I don't know of them.
Yes, and so like I said, we blame parents, and it's they don't have a play history and they don't know what to play either. And so by giving them some guidelines and directions and so forth, to hopefully they play. And then we decided that it's not only parents that don't have a play history, it's teachers. One of the things I did on my pathway is I stopped and I taught at St. Cloud State for 7 years in teacher development, thinking that if I would help teachers do classrooms different, that might be part of the solution. But unfortunately, they would leave my classroom and my space, and within weeks they were in the system and basically doing the classrooms the same way every other teacher was doing it.
Yeah.
And it's not about bad teachers, it's the system that's been created.
Yeah.
And so we decided we had to teach teachers how to play games with their kids, how to transition kids out of their chairs and back into their chairs, how to take 5-minute break and play a game that got everybody up and out, that everybody was able to be together. And so we always give the kids the option of not playing. But since the first week, I know we have not had one kid sit out since the first week. The first week we had a couple of kids that sat out. And we were going to do 20 classrooms. That was our goal. And we went from 20 classrooms to 84 classrooms in 2 days. And so,
Awesome.
yeah. And so we go into these classrooms for 20 minutes. We teach the kids a game, sometimes 2 quick games that teachers can play with them when we're not there. And we get in there every 6 days. Right now, we run a 6-day cycle. But the other piece that I learned through the counseling and therapy was that when I was a principal, I knew all my ADHD kids were mouth breathers, and I had no idea what to do with it. And then through my practice now, pretty much all the kids I was dealing with, anxiety, depression, panic attacks, they too were all mouth breathers. And I learned by teaching them how to breathe into their diaphragm and reduce their shallow breathing, that we could change their whole being and reduce the anxiety and stress in their body. And so what we do now is we go in and we teach the kids different breathing strategies and techniques, trying to get them out of do deeper breathing. And our goal is that when we're not there, the teacher will stop and do that 4, 5, 6 times a day and get that pattern changed, because a pattern that's been developed, it's hard to change if you don't practice it
Sure.
many, many times. And so the breathing is as much of a piece as the games.
That just blows me away. I just cannot believe that something as simple as the way we breathe can have an effect on kids' mental health, and not only kids, but all of us, I guess.
All of us, yes. And
you see these people that meditate and deep breathing. There's absolutely something to it.
Yeah. The other thing I learned through this process was that our tongue holds so much of our emotional energy, our tongue and our face. And if we can relax those muscles in our face and in our tongue, our whole body will shift and relax also. So we also work on different tongue exercises, getting them to release the stress in their tongue and in the palates of their mouth and in their jaws. And between that and the breathing, it is life-changing for kids if we can get them to do it on a regular basis.
Amazing. This is just so enlightening. I mean, some of these simple things that, we just don't think about. But as you said when we were off the air too, kids are different these days than we were, when you and I were kids. But yet we teach the same way and we run everything the same way. So we got to reach these kids differently.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was one of the things as a principal, I thought, oh, we were doing things about as good as could get. And, the
Right.
teachers were working hard. They were doing the curriculum. And it wasn't until I stepped out that I realized there was so much that we were doing that we were wasting time and it was of no value. And now today, more than ever, the kids have access to all the data bits there are in the world. And yet we continue to teach those data bits. We can give that up and let's deal with the whole child and
Right.
do things different. But that's easier said than done.
Yeah.
And I having been in that role of teacher and principal, I know it's not about lazy teachers or principals or anything. It's a system that we
Yeah.
created to make sure things got done. But unfortunately, it's got to, in my opinion, has to change.
Yeah. You talk about we're just about out of time here with Jerry Sparby, but you talk about invisible kids and the kids that are loners. I think, gosh, when I was a kid, and kids aren't always, kids can be cruel. Kids can be, can shove other, kids out of their cliques and their groups. I mean, it's just kind of the way it works. But then you think some of the kids, he just wants to be by himself. He or she just wants to do her own thing. But I think probably all of us want to be included in some fashion.
Yeah. There are some kids that appear to be introverts, and they are, and the screens have really brought kids people
Right.
into being into themselves, and yet I find not a kid that, when given the opportunity, won't look forward to connecting. And one of the things we do is we try to create a synchronicity, a sense of feeling community when we're in that classroom, and we'll do little things like having them touch each other in the palm of their hand or on the shoulder. And when we started out, there was a lot of apprehension about touching somebody else. And I'd tell you now, in every classroom we're at, the kids get up and they grab each other's hands and they put each other on the shoulder. And we're all looking for that. We're all looking to be touched.
Right.
And we've somehow figured out that we got to put these kids in bubbles to manage them, when it's really, if we build relationships, it's about building a community where all kids are felt as part of it. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. Boy, you've been you've had kind of an incredible life here, Jerry, and it's really cool to hear that you're giving back and trying to make a difference in these lives. And there's nothing that there's a lot of bad things that happen in our world. I don't know if there's anything more disheartening or more troubling than school shootings. So if you can make a difference there, that is outstanding, and they keep doing good work.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, it's good to have you, Jerry Sparby. I think we'll bring Jerry back from time to time and just get an update, and I mean, the whole breathing thing, and just it's just there's a lot of facets to this. So it's real interesting. Thanks for coming in and sharing today, Jerry.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes, it seems so simple that it shouldn't work, but that's all it is. It is simple,
Yeah.
but it is about relationships.
Yeah,
Yes,
that gives us hope.
Yes.
So,
Thank
all
you.
right, Jerry Sparby here,
Thank you.
Jim, to talk a little bit today on a very important topic here at Bob FM.